Have you ever felt like you missed a moment you could never get back? Like one small decision ended up changing everything forever? This is the story of Daniel, a son who thought he had all the time in the world until he realized that time waits for no one. He left his mother at the hospital promising he'd be back the next day. But when he finally showed up, fate had already made its move. What happened in those 2 days will stay with you. What would you do if you had just one more chance to say, "I love you"? Stay with me until the end, because this story will touch your heart. Daniel always said he was a busy man. Meetings, emails, deadlines, life in the city never slowed down. But no matter how hectic things got, there was always one person who waited for him without fail. His mother, Clara. She didn't ask for much, just a call, a visit, maybe dinner once in a while. But even those simple things had become rare. Clara had raised Daniel alone. She worked double shifts as a nurse, skipped her own meals to feed him, and never missed a school play, even after 12-hour shifts. She never complained. She just smiled and said, "As long as you're okay, I'm okay." But Daniel, caught up in the rush of adulthood, began to take that love for granted. One Thursday evening, Clara called him. Her voice was a little weaker than usual, but still warm. She said she hadn't been feeling well, and the doctor wanted to run some tests. Daniel, distracted as always, replied, "I'll try to come by this weekend, okay?" She paused, then said, "Don't worry, I know you're busy." The next morning, he got a call. Clara had been admitted to the hospital overnight. It wasn't anything serious, the nurse said, just observation. Daniel told himself he'd go after work. But that evening, he was invited to a last-minute client dinner. He chose to go. After all, it was just one night. The following day was no better. A deadline came up, an urgent report. Daniel sent a quick text. "Sorry, Mom, tomorrow for sure." She didn't reply. He assumed she was sleeping or tired. In truth, Clara had been asking the nurses when he'd arrive. She even kept her hair brushed and her lipstick on, just in case he comes today. And then night fell. Clara closed, her eyes still hoping she'd hear his voice. Saturday morning arrived with a strange weight in the air. Daniel finally made his way to the hospital, coffee in hand, already rehearsing the excuses he'd give her. He imagined her smile, maybe a little disappointed, but always forgiving. That's who she was. Always there, always waiting with open arms. He took the elevator to the 4th floor, familiar now with the quiet, sterile smell of hospitals. As he stepped out, he noticed a nurse giving him a long, quiet look. She didn't say anything at first, just gently motioned for him to follow her. His heart began to race, though he didn't know why. Something felt off. When they reached room 413, the door was closed. The nurse stopped, her hand resting on the handle. She looked at him, a softness in her eyes, and said, "She passed away early this morning, peacefully in her sleep." Daniel froze. The coffee cup slipped from his hand. For a second he didn't breathe. "She kept asking for you," the nurse continued, "right up until her last breath. She wanted to tell you something, but she was too tired to wait any longer." Daniel stepped into the room. The bed was empty now, already made. The window was open, and sunlight poured in, silent and cold. There were flowers on the side table, her bag, her scarf, her scent still hung in the air. He sank into the chair beside the bed, the one she must have looked at every time someone walked by, hoping it was him. And he cried. For the first time in years, he cried like a child, not for her death, but for every moment he hadn't given her, for every tomorrow that never came, for every silence that could have been a hug. He found her phone in her bag, dozens of unsent messages, notes she had written to him, memories she'd hoped to share, regrets she never voiced aloud, all of it, waiting, just like she had. Daniel stayed in that hospital room for hours, long after the staff had gently suggested he go home. He couldn't move. It felt like if he sat there long enough, maybe she'd come back. Maybe she'd walk in, scold him softly for crying and say, "There you are, silly boy. I was waiting." But all that was left were echoes. He kept replaying their last phone call in his head, her soft voice, the way she hesitated before saying goodbye. That hesitation wasn't nothing. It was a quiet plea, and he missed it. He missed everything she'd been trying to tell him. The next few days passed in a blur. Funeral arrangements, condolences, people saying things like, "She's in a better place," or "at least she didn't suffer." But Daniel wasn't listening. He didn't want comfort. He wanted a second chance. One more day, one more hour. In her apartment, Daniel found boxes of old photographs, handwritten letters, and a journal she had started when he was born. In it, she wrote about her fears, her joys, her loneliness. There were entries about how proud she was of him, and pages where she wondered if he still needed her. One line stood out, written just a month before she passed. "I know he loves me. He's just busy. I hope he remembers I'm still here." Reading those words broke him all over. Again, he had no idea she ever questioned his love, and now he couldn't tell her how wrong she was. That she was the only constant in his world, that he did love her, more than words could say. He just thought he had more time. If this story has touched you in any way, leave a like now and share it with someone who needs to hear this. Sometimes, love isn't about the big gestures, it's about showing up before it's too late. Daniel couldn't go back to his old life right away. Every meeting felt meaningless, every deadline felt hollow. He started taking long walks, often ending up at the park where his mother used to take him as a child. He sat on the same bench, where they'd once shared sandwiches and stories. He realized how many memories he had forgotten, or worse, ignored. He began writing her letters, not to send, of course, but just to say the things he never did. "I'm sorry. Thank you. I miss you." He filled pages with memories, regrets, laughter. It became a ritual, something that helped him feel closer to her. In some strange way, it made the silence bearable. One evening, he noticed an older woman sitting alone on a nearby bench. She reminded him of Clara, same gentle eyes, same way of folding her hands. Her son arrived a few minutes later, phone in hand, barely looking up. She smiled anyway, grateful just to have him near. Daniel watched them, heart aching, and for the first time, he did something he never expected. He walked over and introduced himself. Then he said to the young man, "Can I tell you something?" The boy looked confused but nodded. Daniel told him his story, not the whole thing, just enough. "Don't wait," he said. "Whatever you've got going on, it can wait. She can't. Trust me." The mother looked at Daniel with a tear in her eye and thanked him quietly. The boy sat down, put his phone away, and held his mother's hand. Daniel walked away, not with peace, but with purpose. Maybe he couldn't fix the past, but maybe he could help someone else protect their present. It wasn't redemption, but it was something. A beginning, maybe, instead of an ending. Weeks turned into months, and Daniel found himself changed in ways he hadn't expected. He began volunteering at the hospital where his mother had spent her final days. Not out of guilt, but because he realized how many people like Clara were sitting in those rooms, waiting, hoping, wondering if someone would come. He visited rooms with quiet, aging voices. He listened. He laughed. Sometimes he just sat in silence, holding a hand that hadn't been held in too long. The nurses called him the gentle one. They didn't know his full story, but they saw the way he treated every patient, like they were the most important person in the world. Because once, one of them had been. One day, a young woman came into the hospital crying. Her father had just been admitted, and she was overwhelmed. Daniel found her in the hallway and offered her a seat. Without planning to, he told her about Clara. He didn't dramatize it. He just spoke from the heart. "If you have something to say," he told her, "say it now, don't wait." She nodded, wiped her tears, and went in to see her father. Later, she came back and hugged Daniel without a word. That hug felt like something had shifted, a small, invisible wound, healing. Daniel never expected to find meaning in grief, but he did. Not because it got easier, but because he allowed it to matter. He let it shape him instead of break him. And through every quiet room, every soft goodbye, he kept Clara's memory alive. In doing so, he discovered something unexpected. You can still be a good son even after goodbye. A year after Clara's passing, Daniel returned to her grave with something special in hand, a letter. Not just another apology or a string of regrets, but a real letter. A thank you. He read it out loud, voice trembling but steady. He spoke of the lessons she taught him, the warmth she left behind, and the promise he was keeping to never let someone he loved feel forgotten again. As he placed the letter beside her headstone, he felt a breeze pass through the trees. It was nothing unusual, just the wind, but in that moment it felt like an answer, not words, not a voice, but a sense that she heard him, that she knew, and maybe that she forgave him. Daniel still carries the weight of what he didn't do. That never really goes away, but now it's a different kind of weight, one that pushes him forward instead of pulling him down. He smiles more, he listens more, he's present, because he learned the hardest way possible that love isn't just a feeling, it's a choice, a daily, intentional choice to show up. Sometimes he walks through the hospital gardens, remembering the smell of her cooking, the sound of her laugh, the way she used to say his name like it was the most beautiful word in the world. He doesn't run from those memories anymore. He walks alongside them, and every now and then he tells her story, not to make people sad, but to remind them that time isn't promised, that love can't wait, that the people who raised us, held us, believed in us, deserve more than silence and delay. So if there's someone you've been meaning to call, visit, or simply say, "I love you," to do it today, not later. Today, Daniel's story isn't just about loss, it's about realization. It's about the invisible threads that tie us to the people who matter, and how easily they can snap if we don't hold them tight. His greatest regret became his greatest teacher. And through that pain, he learned one of life's deepest truths. Presence is the purest form of love. So don't wait. Show up. Say the words. Be there. If this story touched your heart, leave a like, drop a comment, and share it with someone who needs this reminder. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, yet do it now, because here every story brings a life lesson.